Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Mark Moyer, author of Win Again, speaker, career coach, and business advisor. And I help athletes, executives, and entrepreneurs reach their fullest potential. What you're going to be hearing in every single episode are conversations with athletes and other sports-related influencers. And we'll be offering you the insight that you need to succeed in life, including advice that will let you jump past your competition, whether it be for a great new job or taking your business to a much, much higher level. Make sure to connect with me on social media at Mark Moyer Coach and go to my website, markmoyer.com, to get access to the tips and strategies that my coaching clients get directly. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email to mark@markmoyer.com and I'll get you going right away. Thanks for joining me today. It's going to be an awesome episode. Now, are you ready to make your mark? Let's do this. Hey everyone, welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. My name is Mark Moyer and I'm broadcasting to you live from podcast headquarters here in New York City. And I'm thrilled to have you wherever you're listening, whether it's here in New York, somewhere else in the United States, or overseas. Thanks and welcome to the show. And I'm in a great mood because I just spoke with Anja Bolbjerg. And Anja is not only an accomplished skier, and more specifically a mogul skier and an Olympian, but now she's taking her service to others with her podcast, The Athlete's Story. You can see it on YouTube and everywhere else. And what she's trying to do is really help Olympians make that transition. And it's a great calling, and it's one that I especially myself obviously support. But before we jump into that, make sure you go on to iTunes or wherever else you're listening to this, on YouTube, Stitcher, etc. Leave a review and feel free to reach out to me directly at mark@markmoyer.com. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments on this podcast and others. And go to my website, markmoyer.com, and check out all the other podcasts. They really are amazing episodes. Happy listening with Anja. Hey, welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. I'm super excited to bring to you Anja Bolbjerg, who is, oh my gosh, I made it sound French. But she's hailing from France, actually, but originally of Danish descent. And I'm thrilled to have you, Anja. Thanks for being on the podcast. And we have so much to talk about today, but say hello and welcome us.
So good to be here.
Thank you so much. And, you know, Anja's doing some incredible work right now. And this is why I call this Make Your Mark, because she is making her mark overseas in Europe, where she is doing her best to really educate athletes on how to make a transition. She's also a fitness trainer. She does a lot of different things, which we're going to cover. But Anja, the very first thing I'd love to talk to you about is, you know, you had a great experience in sport. And from what I understand, you were a pretty good skier. Tell me what got you into skiing in the first place? Because I'm not necessarily sure Denmark is the biggest ski country, right? So how'd that get started?
That's a very good point. No, we have no mountains, and it's not even every winter we have snow. So it's not a given that you become a skier.
Right.
But I guess that made it just all the more exotic. And I really, that was the highlight of the year, was to go skiing as a kid. That those 2 weeks a year that we could go on vacation. And that passion just developed into a whole sports career in skiing.
Where would you end up skiing then for those vacation times?
I would go to the Alps, to Austria, to France, those places.
Oh, beautiful. Now, was your family already, were they already skiers and you started at a young age, or how'd that develop?
Well, my mom and dad met on their first skiing vacation, both of them. And,
oh, really?
Yeah. But from there, and then to say they're skiers, I don't know. They were ski lovers. Like they really loved this kind of being together as a family.
Oh, that's
but
great.
They never thought of it as a sport and a competitive thing. And we were never I had two brothers. We were never in a ski club or anything like that. So the passion for the competition, that was something that came way later.
Well, so when you say way later, when did you become competitive, and in what disciplines of skiing did you, what introduced you to the different varieties, and what made you stick with one and train in that area?
Well, I think since we weren't in a club, we couldn't go ski the gates that people would go do racing. So what else was there to do when you wanted to challenge yourself a bit? There was the off-piste and there was the moguls, and that was what we did. And the moguls are always there. You can always find a good challenge there, and that's that passion for, now I can take 3 moguls in a row without crashing, and now I can take 5, and that whole game of seeing how far you could take it.
Oh, that's great.
And then I was, somebody said to me, "Oh, I used to try and compete." And
right.
So I my first competition was like that, with no big ambitions of being a competitive skier, but it's still ignited that thing. I mean, I've always been into sports. I played team handball. I did gymnastics. I used to wish there were more than 5 weekdays because I wanted to do more than 5 activities. Oh,
that's
always love sports.
Well, so with the moguls, so I ski or have skied, and it's I love skiing, and I'm not a snowboarder. I tried it once in Montreal a long time ago, and the very first time I tried it, back then it was really cool to wear jeans when you ski and not necessarily the big outfits that they have now. And I'll never forget, all my friends, we all showed up at the mountain, Mont Tremblant, and we said, "Hey, we're all here to ski." We went to rent skis. They didn't have any left, but they said, "Oh, we have snowboards." And we're like, "What the hell are snowboards?" Because it was pretty new. And they said, "Oh, you should try it out, take a lesson and try it." So we, of course, all, we were all 22 years old, and we were all very like, "Oh yeah, we could do this." And we took a quick lesson and then proceeded to, I suffered maybe 7 or 8 concussions on the way down the hill. I was falling all the time. I was soaking wet. I was miserable. I hated the fact I couldn't move my legs. So that was the end of my snowboarding career. But skiing, I love skiing, and I know you do too. But moguls to me seems like, I've tried, like you said, you wanted to do 3 and not fall, and then 5 not fall. I think doing 1.5 for me, and I'm going to do a face plant into the snow. That's an incredibly, it seems like an incredibly challenging sport. How did you, I see how you chose that, but as you continued training, was it physically more challenging?
What kept me in there, because I was like way behind my competition when I started. Yeah. But I love the atmosphere. There was music at the competitions, and it was just a good atmosphere. People fooling around, and it was friendly. And then I liked that there were so many different elements that you had to work on. In the beginning, I didn't like the airs too much. You have to jump twice coming down, and
right.
That was a bit scary. But you come to love that after a while, and that's a good break in the run to get that air time. So.
And then
but that's years later, right?
Well, yeah, but it's how big is sort of the, I don't know if it's the World Cup tour, but are there hundreds and hundreds of people that do moguls, or is it a smaller community that do moguls? What's that like? Well,
it's different in different countries. Okay. In the U.S., every little ski resort will have their club, and the kids will start, I think, even when they're little kids.
Okay.
And in France, it's not super big, but like they managed to come and win the Olympics the last time here in Pyeongchang.
Okay.
The French girl won the women's moguls, and up in Scandinavia they'll have a few, but it's not like as big as alpine skiing. But I think there's a natural limitation to how many it can get, because there's this whole element of fear. So kind of like downhill skiing, you won't have near as many competing in downhill skiing as you will in slalom, just because of that fear element.
Well, look, it seems like an incredibly challenging sport, and every time I watch it, I almost cringe a little bit, because I feel my knees starting to hurt just watching it. I'm amazed at how do you keep your body in condition for that? It just seems like it's so much stress on your joints, isn't it? Or not really?
you got to imagine like you're doing 60 to 70 squats with full weight going down those moguls. And in a training session, you can do that maybe up to 10 runs.
Yeah.
So that's a whole lot of squats. I mean, my legs were a lot bigger than they are now. And can be.
I can imagine.
You got some pretty strong people out there. But then you got to prepare on the side too, because you got to prepare for all of those situations that are not ideal, and you got to be able to pull yourself out of positions that are sometimes pretty extreme.
Right.
So there's a lot of conditioning involved in that.
Now, how? So now you've decided, okay, you're going to be a mogulist, or you're going to be doing the moguls, and you start competing. But what was there a moment where you said, wait a second, I might actually be pretty good at this? Like was there a specific year or time where you said, you know what, this is, it's fun, but now I can really turn it into something big?
Well, there was actually, because in 1994, I had been competing for 1 year, and 1 year. And it was the time for the Olympics in Lillehammer, and I didn't really have the level, but we did compete for the Danish Ski Federation, and they told me, we need your not dress size, your whatever size for clothing,
right?
Just in case you qualify for the Olympics. And I was like, what? I can qualify for the Olympics? And so that really ignited something in me. And even though I didn't have the level to compete at the Olympics, and I didn't qualify in 94, it set me out on, okay, in 98, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be competing. So what I did was I took a step back. I started competing at a lower level in the Europa Cup instead of the World Cup.
Right.
And I rented books in the library on sports psychology and tried to do it the real way. And I got this mantra, I will, I can, I dare. That was in my head every time. And I started to win some competitions. And that's when I started to see, okay, I know I have, even though I don't have as many kilometers in my legs as my competitors, I have something else to my advantage. And
Well, so what's incredible about that story, I love that story, Anja, because it's what's interesting is that you said, well, the moment they asked you what size is your bib or whatever your clothes are, or ski clothes would be, that triggered it. That's such a cool, that's such an amazing little moment, because it's, I'm thinking, wow, it's almost like, if you're an actor and they say, well, we want to fit you for a tuxedo because you're going to be at the Academy Awards or something. I mean, that's really exciting. So 98, Nagano, right?
Right.
And so tell me about that experience. You have you ever been to another Olympics as a fan or any other reason to be at one?
No. I used to live in the Alps when it was the 1992 Olympics in Alphaville, but right where I lived, they didn't have any events. So no, not really. But I knew the Olympics. I loved watching the Olympics on TV, and I wanted to be there. The preparation had been very filled with ups and downs. I had progressively improved, and I was really on schedule for doing my best because I had won my first ever World Cup in December, just prior to the Olympics that were going to be in February, and I was leading the World Cup.
How does it work typically? Where how many qualify for the Olympics? I mean, how many go over there to do a specific sport, a specific race, and so forth? I mean, how many is it? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50? How many overall qualify?
Well, it's changed a little over the years, but it would be typically it's about 30 women and 60 men that will go. Yeah, I think something around there. And
Now, so does that mean that I'm assuming there's a minimum qualification that everybody has to maintain. So it's not like something where if I was skiing for the, Sudanese team or the Tanzanian team where there's nobody else that skis or whatever, I can't just show up and ski. I have to, I'm assuming, reach a certain level.
Yeah, there's an international minimum standard that you have to meet. And then each national Olympic committee can put their own limit. And mine was from the National Olympic Committee that I had to be twice in the top 12, and once had to be in that twice in the top 12 to pre-qualify, and then to confirm my qualification, I had to be in top 12 again once in that year.
Wow! So you made it. So. I'm assuming it was, were you there for now did you, I know sometimes with the Winter Olympics, stretched out over 2 weeks or 13 days or something, some people miss the opening ceremony, some people miss the closing. Were you able to stay were you able to be there for the opening, or what was your
the thing was 1 month before, actually in Mont Tremblant, where you had your snowboarding adventure, I herniated 3 discs in my lower back.
Okay.
So this was 1 month before the Olympics, and I couldn't move. Like, I really couldn't move. And I tried to say, okay, next weekend is going to be better for the next competition. So I kept traveling along on the World Cup tour, but having to pull out of the competition and training. So I was basically just traveling around for 1 month, doing nothing but trying to stay out of pain. So no competition and no training, which was not the ideal preparation for the Olympics. And when I got there, I didn't know if I was going to be able to compete. But what we did was, with my coach, he went out on the training course and watched the trainings of the others, and he picked a line. You can pick a line. There's usually like 3 to 5 lines that you can pick from.
What do you mean, like to train, or what do you mean by that?
On the Moguls course, you want to stay in the fall line. So you don't want to go over here ski and then go over here ski. You want to stay in one line. Right. Okay. And, so he said, okay, this is a good line for Anja.
Okay.
He drew it on a piece of paper, like, here's the small bump, here's the longer one, here's 2 quick ones. And the last one before is a left turn before you hit the first air bump, and like that. And he gave me that piece of paper, and I was lying on the bed and I had to learn the course that way. Wow. And I think since I had just 1 month before been leading the World Cup and knew I was technically able to do it, I believed that I still somehow believed that, I had my chance of it. And I just kept studying this thing. And I guess with the adrenaline, I picked myself up, went out for the qualification, and managed to qualify for the finals. And the qualifications was the day after the opening ceremony. So we just decided not go to the opening ceremony. The only thing was go do your run and go back and recover. And so for the next 3 days, I didn't train on the course either. For the finals, I showed up, and I did a really, really good top part of the course. And in the landing of the second air bump, I made a mistake that, I think I was a bit rusty for not having so I didn't pick it up right away, and I pretty much straight lined the last couple of bumps, and that's where the judges cut you. So I ended up 13th. But I went there going for the gold. Well, that's great. And, I know I think everybody has a tendency to want to go for the gold. And even if you're an athlete that's not necessarily a top ranked athlete, and that's wonderful. But I also hope that you had the opportunity to sort of appreciate the experience a little bit. It's I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to compete for my country. I mean, I think that's amazing. It's incredible. It was amazing. And it was amazing to be in Japan doing it, because I could hear on the sides, 2 sides of the course going down. Anja. Oh, yeah? Because there's so many people in Japan. There's fans for every sport. So there were fans for mogul skiing who knew my name over in Japan.
Great.
And that was a big lift. And
that's exciting. Now, so tell me a little bit more about I want to spend just another minute or so talking about the remainder of your skiing career. So you competed in the Olympics. Tell me a little bit more about some of the rest of your mogul career, but then also, your return to the return to skiing afterwards. So walk me through how that all went. Like, why don't we just quickly talk about sort of the remainder of your skiing career, and then while you were skiing, were you trying to think of, well, what do I do when I have to stop skiing, or did you not really focus on that? What happened in your case?
Well, I had started studying at university before I even knew I was going to be a competitive skier.
Okay, good.
And then my younger brother back then, when he finished high school, he wanted to go skiing. And I said, well, then I got to come with you. And that was how we started competing together.
Mm-hmm.
But I was still at university.
Okay.
So I would just pick the subjects that would fit the calendar. And then from that time on, skiing always had first priority. And my studies was like in May, whatever I could manage to read up on. And
Right.
It just took me a long time to finish that thing. But I had that in the background the whole time, studying engineering. But over the years, like after this incident with the herniated discs in Nagano, and the whole struggle because then I stopped competing for the rest of that year and went back to try and get that back in place and strong, and I struggled with that back for a full year before I found the Canadian team doctor who said, come on over to Canada, we'll fix you over the summer and stuff. So I went over there.
Okay.
And that's why I developed my whole passion for conditioning and what I've been doing after sports. And I turned my engineering degree over to biomechanics and physiology and that. So I have like the weirdest engineering degree that I kind of composed myself because I had this new passion.
So then you, so after you stopped competitive mogul skiing, I mean, tell me about the transition, and, you did all this advanced studying, but then what was it, did you say, well, I'm going to do this when I stop, or was it a series of different things, or what happened in your case?
Well, I had a lot more years competing. I competed at Salt Lake Olympics as well in 2002. And then for a couple of other years after that. And then in 2004, I finished my university degree. And that's, by then I knew that I was not going to be ever working as an engineer. And I took a personal trainer certificate and I said, well, this is what I'm going to dedicate myself to. I have been through so many injuries and so many comebacks, and I've seen how you can influence your body. And I thought this was fascinating, and not enough people know about this. They just take for granted whatever they're told. You have a bad knee, and then they think they have a bad knee for the rest of their lives. And I wanted to go out there and save the world that way.
Oh, that's great. And so you started doing that, but then did you ever, tell me about the return back to skiing? I mean, what made you want to come back to the skiing, competitive skiing?
Well, when I stopped mogul skiing, it was because of one injury too many, and I couldn't. I tried, but I couldn't handle the training volume that I needed to come back and do a third Olympics, and where I wanted to get my revenge at that third Olympics and show up stronger than ever and stuff. But I couldn't. I just couldn't. Okay. So I had to stop my competitive career then, and then I went, back to family life. Thought I was gonna have a family. We were gonna do stuff that my ex-husband wanted, because now it has been pretty much on my terms.
Okay.
And so I was a little bit on standby. When am I gonna have these kids? When am I gonna? But I had a few miscarriages, and it didn't happen. And well, it ended up in a divorce. And after the divorce, I was like, okay, I can go skiing now. So, I've been, staying strong through my work as a personal trainer.
Right.
Always. So I went back, started competing in some free ride skiing, which had always been my second passion, skiing. And I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden I just did really well. I qualified. I got a wild card through a big, huge cliff I dropped, and got a wild card to an international competition, won that one, and then boom, I was on the Freeride World Tour.
Wow.
So that was like a bonus career and a really nice way to really end my career, because the first transition had been tough because it wasn't what I wanted to do. I wasn't ready, and that's how it goes for many athletes, right? The second time I retired was a lot better because I felt more fulfilled. And
oh, good. So tell me a little bit now about I know you have a fitness business that you're training people, but tell me what's your style? Because there's a million different fitness trainers out there. They all do things differently. Some focus on cardio, some focus on the weight, some focus on whatever it is, blah, 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 blah. Where do you think your special sauce is? What is your, people come to you because they know they're going to get what from you? Well,
there's a lot of trainers in my area. I live just right by Monaco, and it's a good market for personal trainers. I come as an athlete, first of all.
Okay.
And not as a fitness person. So my approach is more like, what are we training for?
Good.
Not fitness for the sake of fitness, but what are we preparing for?
Okay, good.
That's how it's been in sports. You go to the gym so you can ski better.
Right. And so it might be, for example, if I wanted to be a better soccer player, maybe you'd focus more on lower body stuff, I guess. And then maybe if I wanted to be a skier, you'd focus on other things. If I wanted to be a marathoner, if I wanted to be a bike, right? All these, you'd have different programs based on what the ultimate goal is. I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
And
so some of my clients have been athletes who wanted to come back in the sport after injuries.
Okay.
Actually. And then others are executives. But what has been like a thing that's like a red thread has been that they've had some kind of injury that it set them back, and that they need help too.
Now, these executives would suffer these injuries at the conference room table, or no? I'm joking. No. That's amazing. And so you're doing this now, but you also yourself host a show called The Athlete Story, and it seems like you've been doing it for a little while now. But tell me a little bit about The Athlete Story and what your goal is for it, and what is the mission of The Athlete Story, ideally.
Well, I like that you say the mission, because I feel like I am a bit on a mission. I'm on a mission to help athletes and former athletes take ownership of their sports career.
Okay.
And not feel like that was then and now we have to start all over and go in this defined track that somebody, or for the worst even, fall back on whatever you were told that you fall back on. Because I think we lose so much momentum in that phase. I mean, as an athlete, you have this mindset that you can learn anything. Like, you really believe in practice and in the power of just putting yourself out there and doing stuff. And if your transition is like a full stop and try to start over after a full stop,
right,
lose a lot of that. And
right.
I want to help athletes hold on to that, to keep the momentum going and stay in that mindset that you can learn anything. You can, with practice and then putting yourself out there. And my show is, I feel, exemplifies that in a way, because I'm not a media person. I'm not meant to be on the show. I'm really an introvert, and And it was out of my comfort zone to start this whole both YouTube and podcast show.
But it's great though. It's one. I mean, look, and you're I hope some form of a role model and inspiration to people that they may also think of themselves as introverts, but they've also got such an important message to tell and to teach. And, you know, I think that when you're speaking with other athletes, I get the feeling that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but many athletes, when they leave their sport, they're so used to the structure of the sport. And then when they leave, they don't have structure. And I think to be back, especially to develop a fitness routine for them to come back in, along with a mental routine and other routines, but a fitness routine to get them back into a little bit of a rhythm is so essential for the mental well-being, right?
Yeah. And like you a little bit alluded to, I think it's called. It starts with conditioning. Like, I am a conditioning coach, and it starts with the physical aspect. But I mean, it's the same principles. It develops from the physical into all elements. It's the same principles that if you practice and you put yourself out there, you practice and you put yourself out, you change and you adapt and you get to where you want to. So,
well, look, and at the end of the day, any sort of physical activity is sort of results based, right? If you're doing the work, you're going to see the results. It's not something where you're going to be working out a lot and suddenly you're going to, like in my case, maybe get a bit of a belly. You're going to hopefully see it disappear if you're doing the right thing. So that's the best thing about fitness, is that you absolutely see the results, which can be different from, let's say, running a business, which I know you know a lot about. When you run a business, you can work your butt off, but not necessarily see the results because you may not be doing the right things in that you're supposed to do to get those results. But in fitness, I think it's fabulous. So with these athletes,
I started I just want to tell you a story where it didn't go so well. I started a business where I proposed corporate challenges. So like to bring well-being and fitness out into the big corporate world.
Yeah.
And I had a really good, fun program, and the people that did it, they loved it, and they reordered it the next year and the next year. But to get just one client was such a struggle, I just couldn't get my message through to them and sell the idea. And that's when I stopped and said, okay, something is not right. And I don't get that flow feeling that you want to get from skiing. And I got to find that in my business life. And I think I'm just not going uphill here. I'm trying to push and push and push and putting in so many hours, and it's not getting me where I want to. And so I started to look back at, okay, where is it that people come to me for advice? Where is it that I feel like I'm really useful and really helpful? And that's how this whole Athlete Story program came up, because that's where I know I have a lot to offer, a lot of value.
Well, well, look, I mean, clearly you do. And I think that one of the big things that we need to really focus on, and you and I have spoken about this before, that Olympians especially, when they're competing, typically they're focused almost 100% of the time on their training, whether they're doing the physical training, the mental training, all kinds of preparation. But then almost like the day after, whether it's the Olympics or when they decide to stop their competition, and it can be skiing, it can be kayaking, it can be judo, it can be almost anything, that there are limited opportunities afterwards, after the sport, to continue on and really make a significant living. So you need to start figuring out, well, what am I going to do to support myself afterwards? And a lot of that has to do with, yes, the fitness routine, but also a lot of other things, mental routine, a professional routine. What am I going to do to actually bring in money, to be relevant again? What are some of the things that you see, some of the athletes that you work with, where do they where do they struggle trying to figure out, well, what's next for them? And how do you think they can, make a better transition or an easier transition?
I think one big thing is that we're all told from parents and, well-meaning people, friends, you need something to fall back on.
Right.
And I think it's that's where the shift has to be. That's where we have to make a revolution. Because it's not like there's an athletic career and then there's the rest of society. And that you have to put everything aside, all the skills you've learned, every experience you've had in a sports career, that it's worth nothing. It's a career. And I want to help people own that, just like you have an MBA or you have a PhD, you have a sports career, and you can build upon that. You don't have to fall back and start all over in a new predefined track. And I think we live in times today that are different actually from when I retired, where there's so many opportunities to learn things on demand. And I did it with my university. I applied. Can I change and can I take some subjects on the other line of the other university and get credit for it here and stuff, so I could get those biomechanics and physiology classes in there. Right. But now you can do so much online on demand, and with the right guidance, I think there needs to be a mindset shift.
So speaking of the right guidance, speaking of the right guidance, who do you think, in your opinion, I mean, I'm just curious to know your thoughts on this, who should be offering that guidance? I mean, is it going to be an Olympic governing body? Is it going to be like an International Olympic Committee, IOC? Is it a specific country's maybe Olympic committee, or is it something where maybe it's the individual sport that should be providing that? Or honestly, should they even worry about that? Because after all, they're focused on you competing in your sport. They don't necessarily, I don't want to sound harsh, but they don't necessarily care what you do after the sport. You're there to compete in that sport. So is it something that really it should be the responsibility of the athlete to figure out how are they going to get that information? What's in your opinion the best way to get that sort of counseling or advice?
Well, I think it would be easy to just say, well, that's the responsibility of the association, right? But they're just not perhaps where you are. They haven't been through what you've been through. Right. They have different interests, like you said. They have to focus on the people who are active more than the people who retired. I lost my funding when I decided to finish I had funding for competition. Right. And I lost that funding when I wanted to finish my degree, even though it says in their policy, we want the whole person, we want the whole athlete. So it's, even though it's in the policy and all that they want to take care of you, it's just conflict of interest, and I don't think we can expect that to happen. It's nice if it does, but I think the responsibility has to lie with the athlete too. I mean, if you don't take responsibility for yourself, who's going to do it? Oh, of course.
Well, yes, of course, for anything. So you and I have talked about, because right now there really isn't, as far as I know anyway, a specific outside or external resource for athletes to really go to that they can get quality advice and quality guidance, whether it's, again, fitness related, work related, a lot of other elements of their life. There aren't too many that I know of specific resources that they can go to and get that sort of advice. And that's something that you and I are talking about trying to get implemented or get rolling at some point, is a place that Olympians, especially, whether they're current or retired, they can go to for as a resource to get really good sort of, whether it's coaching of some sort, whether it's career coaching, business coaching, even some elements of life coaching, financial expertise, maybe certainly fitness expertise. But, we both have spoken about very strongly about how, it's something that's so important that an athlete is is so well trained in what they do, but sometimes when they leave, they don't know how to apply all the skills they developed as an athlete into their next.
And we, in general, we're not very good at asking for help. We've had a coach, maybe the most of us, and that person has kind of stepped in and seen when we needed help. If we've had an injury, okay, we've had to go for help.
Right.
But other than that, it's not in our nature. We just fight, and even if we keep banging our head against the same wall or knocking on the same door over and over again, what we know is fight and go for it and push. But asking for help is not necessarily one of our big strengths. So I think there's definitely help to offer, and I think as an independent, what Athlete Story can offer or whatever is that it can be a global network, and it can be unlimited, and it can be with our mindset that we can do what we set our minds to do, and not be limited by politicians or by certain country policies and borders, but something truly global and something where we truly have something in common. Common experiences to share and learn from, and yeah.
Look, getting good quality, actionable advice that is not a bunch of BS, hand-holdy, cuddly, whatever stuff, but something that an athlete can really read and run with and take or watch and run with, I think is so essential. And that's something, so we'll be talking a lot about that going forward, Anja. And for all of our listeners and watchers, you will soon see some programming that I think will be extraordinarily beneficial to you and your careers and your businesses and your body. And so we're looking forward to that. Now I want to shift into what I like to call my Hit Your Mark segment. It's just going to be a few quick questions for you that are very easy to answer, nothing to panic about yet, maybe. But what I'd love to hear, Anja, real quickly is give me, looking back at when you're competing, try to think of an episode that happened that you thought was incredibly funny. If it was a specific prank that was done by a fellow competitor to you or you did to them, or if it was just something that, give me something that you thought was just so funny that happened that someone either, again, did as a prank or it was just a funny event. What kind of a funny memory do you have looking back? For example, other athletes, one guy that was playing football, he said that what they would do with sometimes with the rookies is they would put, bugs or something in the person's equipment, and they would scare them when they went to put it on. And I was speaking to a soldier, a veteran, and he said that sometimes what they would do is, whatever. They have different things that they would do to keep things interesting, we'll say. But, in the world of skiing, it just seems like there would be, seems like, honestly, if you ask me, it always seems like people that are involved in skiing or snowboarding are always partying. And there's no actual, they ski a few times and they go down and drink or smoke or whatever they do. And then, yeah, man, ski on, whoa. And I'm like, man, they always look like they're having a blast. They're having a great time. And, I don't know if the public necessarily knows the amount of training that goes on and the amount of, hard work that it takes to be successful and a competitive skier. But is there anything that you can remember that was,
Well, talking about the partying, I think one of the reasons why there is quite a bit of partying going on, after the competitions, right? But I think one thing is that you have so much adrenaline in your system, and you gotta get it out of the system somehow, and a good party will do that.
Yes, it will.
I don't know much about this. I don't think there's a lot of smoking going on, though.
That messes your body up too much, probably.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the going forward, I like to talk about, making your mark. That's a big promo plug there. But what I like to talk about is, going forward, how do you, we've talked about the athlete story. We've talked about maybe some ideas on helping athletes, but, where do you see yourself as, how do you provide, what's the greatest value you think you can provide? How can you make your mark out there, going forward? How do you see yourself? How would you tell people this is how I plan on making a positive impact?
Because I believe in learning to the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of my heart. And I think we can all learn. Like, nobody is born so that they can't learn. And it's just about finding what works for you. How do you learn? How do you improve? And from there on, we can only become a better place.
That's true.
That's how I think I get it. And one of my strengths is that I usually can relate to the one person and find out what works for that person, and do a different strategy for the other person who works in another room. And that's how I make a difference as a trainer, and that's how I make a difference as a mentor.
Got it. One other question I had about the skiing: is there one specific time you can remember that you had such a big crash, a big wipeout, that you still remember it? You still say, "Oh my God," and you're like, "That was bad." Is there anyone that stands out, or they're all bad, I guess? But
well, the one that just comes to mind right now, there's been a few, but one that comes to mind right now was in a free ride competition, where when you're free riding, you have to compete on a mountainside between rocks and big cliffs and trees and stuff, and you can only check the course from the bottom. So when you get to the top, you after maybe up to 1 hour hike, then you have to find your way down the way that you've decided that you want to ski. You have to find that and recognize that scene from the top. Okay. And sometimes it goes like this. So when you come, you can't see. You just have to trust what you think you saw at the bottom. And so I come on this place and thinking I was in a different place, and all of a sudden it's just rocks, but not rocks that I could drop, but rocks that I had to cross. And I get caught, and I tumble over and over and over, and just the reflexes, and I don't even know how it happened. I just know I need to get my ski tips pointing down, and then I can get up. And even though I've been tumbling over it, I don't know how many times, I just managed to get up and run it through and not get hurt.
Wow.
But if I didn't have that somehow automatically worked into my body, that those skis had to point down, I would have hurt myself really, really,
Wow, that's incredible. That's amazing. So, all right, next question is an easy one, maybe not easy one. Give me 3 people that you would love to tomorrow have a drink with, and they could be dead or alive, doesn't matter, but 3 people that you would love to have an opportunity to share a table with.
Okay, 3 people. Nancy Hogshead-Makar, who she's been on my show. She's a triple Olympic gold medalist in swimming and does awesome work for women in sports and advocating for women and girls in sports.
Oh, great.
For their rights.
Okay.
Another person, I never was one who had, a whole lot of heroes and stuff.
Yeah.
But who, Usain Bolt, I would love to meet.
Oh, interesting. That'd be cool.
And,
interesting. Good. Cool.
And Obama.
Oh, interesting. Cool. I often thought about what it would be like to sit down with Christopher Columbus, or somebody like, or even Napoleon, and ask him, "Hey, dude, what's up with the, whatever." I think it'd be, or George Washington for us Americans. There's a whole lot of people that'd be pretty interesting. But that's a great list, and it's tough to think of somebody right on the spot like that. Now, so how can people, Anja, get a hold of you? What's the best way for them to find either you or the athlete's story? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Well, you go to athletestory.com.
Okay.
On the web, or Athlete Story on Facebook, on Instagram, it's Athlete Story Podcast.
Great.
The podcast, you can also find it on athletestory.com in the podcast section.
Excellent. And
there's a YouTube show as well. You find me on YouTube. That would be my personal channel.
Got it. Good. So look, I'm thrilled with the work that you're doing, but I'm also excited to see what happens going forward. I think that you've already accomplished so much between the athletic work that you've done and really just the working with athletes to get them in a better place. I mean, it's one thing to work with somebody to get the financial gain for it, but it's, I think people like us, because I think we're similar, is we get immense satisfaction and contentment and fulfillment with the actual helping. It's not necessarily any financial gain that's coming in, but it's knowing that our impact upon other people is making a positive impact. So, I think what you're doing is great, Anja. I appreciate you coming on my podcast and telling us your story, and, not just how you're making that positive impact, but how you're making your mark. So thank you for being with me today. And
thank you for helping me make my mark.
Well, that's good. Well, thank you for the kind words, and look forward to working, alongside you going forward. I think that we've got some great ideas about how we can do some positive work with the Olympians and others. So,
yeah, I think you should look out for that, because some good stuff is coming up.
It is coming. So have a great rest of your day, Anja. Thanks for being with me. You're way overseas in France near Monaco. And so I'll let you get back to hanging out with the rich and famous people. And I'll get back to what I'm doing here in New York. And we'll have a great rest of the week.
Excellent. You too. Have a great week.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for joining us today on this episode of Make Your Mark podcast. The goal of the podcast is to help you find ways to make your mark, to succeed in life, and to jump past your competition. Be sure to leave me a review on iTunes and Stitcher, and subscribe to be the first to hear new episodes. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email, mark@markmoyer.com, and I'll get back to you right away. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.